you trying to get crazy with this scene? Don't you know I'm loco?
That day, like 80 something Americans were injured, and we went down there. So it's the special forces guy, the combat controller, which is the Air Force guy that we had with us that controls the birds to drop bombs. So we were down there, we're waiting for the Taliban to come, and it never came because they had another suicide vehicle coming, and we knew this because the locals had talked to each other and said like, hey, these fuckers the Taliban blew themselves up right next to the market. It killed some of the Afghans. So then the locals were in front of a truck and not allowing it to come in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Lower Left Podcast, brought to you by Tribal Streetwear from the Lower Left at 17th and Island here in San Diego, California. Is myself, Bobby Tribal, also known as Bobby Ruiz, and my boy Johnny B. Good in the house. And that's right. And today we have another. I mean, this dude's got a far out, amazing, incredible story. I met him through a mutual friend of ours named Paul Gomez, and his name's Angel. And this dude, I guess, we've done a couple stories that are kind of like stories of the American dream, of Americana, of people that grew up similar to the way we did, and just what their stories are about. So Angel grew up in Southern California. He's an ex-gang member who went through a lot of shit, and then eventually became an Army Ranger, which is no small feat in any regards. He's a badass. He trains them in MMA, and he helps the youth like kids. He does a lot of shit with kids and helps veterans and does a lot of really, really cool shit for people. But an amazing story. So here he is. What's happening, Angel?
Well, thank you for having me here. I love what you got going on. I love the vibe, and I love just hearing you. I see you as a mentor. I appreciate that, man. So I'm just taking it all in. Yeah, learning.
What I seen the first time that I met Angel was a friend of mine, a friend of my family, brought up this point. He came to visit at the house. His name's Isaac Pelayo. He's a young artist from LA who's a good friend. Him and his father are a good friend of our family. And we were having this discussion, when there was all the uprising, and we were talking about leaders and Chicano leaders and black leaders and people of colors, the leaders. And he brought up a good point, like, well, who are the Chicano leaders? Where are the Mexican American leaders? And when we, he kind of caught me off guard, because there's none that I could really speak of that kind of just immediately, there's some in the past, but none really jumped out at me. So I see Angel's future as potentially being a leader, either politically or, just standing up for people's rights, or just kind of being that dude. Because after you hear his story, you'll know that this dude has the credentials. In my opinion, he has the street credentials. He's obviously served in the military. He's been to Afghanistan, seen some real gnarly, crazy stuff in Afghanistan and Iraq, and the streets. And now he, like I said, he continues to train, and he helps kids and helps veterans and does some really cool stuff. And he's now a part of the circle that we all move in, down here, and with a lot of mutual friends, and he's just a great dude. So take
Bobby, real quick. When Bobby told me about you, he sent me your Instagram. This is probably like 2 months ago, and Bobby actually told me like the same thing that he just said about leaders. And I looked at your Instagram, and I was like, holy shit, Bobby ain't lying. Like, to see what you've done, what you're doing, and where you've been, like it's a very inspirational story, and it's just beginning, and it's pretty cool, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, where you take it, So give us a little background, like, where you were born, how you were brought up, and just, as a child, some of the stuff that you experienced and went through, and then later, going into the gang.
Yeah. So I'm the first one in my family to be born in the United States. My mom got pregnant. She was a teenager. So then her dad was like, hey, let's go to America. Tell your man, which is my dad, to come along, because there's no future here. They're from a very small town in Puebla, very small. And so they came, and they got here and they moved in Westminster, Orange County, and then eventually to Santa Ana when they can afford it. But when they first got here, they lived in mobile homes with Vietnamese, and through a friend of a friend, they're like, you're going to work at our Vietnamese bakery. You're going to make the French bread for the baguettes to make and bolillos. And then eventually they're like, okay, you're going to work at a panderia. And so, making bread, you're not making a lot of money. So we grew up poor. I spent a lot of time in Santa Ana and Garden Grove. And we were poor. And I knew at a very young age that if I was hungry, to not ask for food, because at that point I already knew, like, that's a stupid thing to ask, because why would you ask for something that's not there? My dad was an alcoholic. He would beat us all the time. He would beat my mom. He, for any reason. And it was never, if I wonder if I'm going to get hit. It was, when is the next time I'm going to get hit? And he would use everything. And my mother, being young, and they're both different, by the way. They're both completely different now. But, she used to tell us that we ruined her life, that nobody loves us. We would be left alone in the house for a long time after my parents split when I was 5. My mom was still young, so she would go party. I remember she would buy us a large pizza, rent us 2 movies, and then just leave for a day and a half or maybe a day. And then we were young, so we were like, yo, we got these VHS Disney movies. We got a pizza. Like, that's all we need.
Yeah.
So, and then eventually she would come home and rack out. And then when they would fight and argue, it was never, my parents would never argue about, hey, I want them. It was like, no, you fucking take them. Growing up, seeing that, getting physically, mentally abused I just thought that was normal.
How old were you when your mom told you she didn't love you?
Man, maybe 7 is as far as I can remember. But it was probably even before that. And then I remember the first time my dad told me he loved me, I think I was like 12. And it was super awkward. And he was drunk. And I was just like, this is super awkward. Like, he hugged me, he told me he loved me. And I remember just being like, I just want to get away from this. This is weird, man. Like, you're being weird right now.
Yeah.
So of course, with being poor, you live in areas where, where you can rent a room or rent an apartment. And with low income communities comes the drugs and the violence. So for the most part, I stayed away from the gang members. I didn't know they were gang members. I didn't know who they were, what they did. What I would see is that, you got these dudes who they look tough. They blast music. They're drinking in front. Nobody tells them what to do or not to do. But, my dad would never acknowledge them. He would just like walk around or whatever. So I just did the same thing. And I was always skating. I love skating but
it's a trip, because listening to your, I know your story pretty much. And a lot of the people that come through here, the people like even, Lepke, and, myself and a lot of people, like I was talking to the dudes from, some of the car clubs, and skateboarding kind of intertwines into all of us. Like, it's kind of the common denominator, one of the common denominators. So that's really cool. So you used to skate around the neighborhoods as a little kid, right?
Yeah. Kid. So I would borrow, because I was too poor to have a skateboard. So I would borrow my cousin's skateboard or a friend's skateboard, and I would just skate as much as I could. So any opportunity I got to get on a board, whoever it was, I would just skate it. And I did that until I was in junior high. And then this was that age where these gang members, I wasn't just a little kid anymore. Now they're like, yo, who are you? You're going to kick it with us or whatever. And I'll never forget this day, because it changed my life. they wanted to ride one of our skateboards. It was after school. And, I got my
one of your homies with you?
So all my homies are with me. So it's like 6, 8, skater kids. And one of them's like, yo, let me ride your board. And then he just started riding it around, and you can tell he can't do tricks or anything. But then he started talking to his friends. So we see him in his group, and we're like, yo, man, like, get your board back. And then we can tell he didn't want to give it back. But I can tell that half the group didn't want to do anything about it. But I was upset. It wasn't my board, but I was like, no, man, like, that's yours. That's ours. And I remember one of the gang members being like, looking at me, because I clearly had like a look on my face. He's like, this fool doesn't even know. As like saying, like, I don't even know what could happen to me, And I remember thinking, like, man, I like my friends, but they don't want to stand up to themselves. And eventually I met some other gang members from that school that they were like, yo, man, we don't like these dudes. And I was like, shit, I don't like them either. So I was like, let's kick it together.
Yeah.
And then now I had backup. So now if I ever had any issues with any of them, I knew I was going to be okay. But what I didn't think about was that not only now do I have problems because I'm kicking it with this gang, not only do I have problems for sure with the gang members at school, but I got problems with the gang members outside of school, adults that are affiliated with these guys, and people from other cities, and and whatever crews they're cool with.
What grade were you in?
8th grade.
8th grade. Did you get jumped in or?
So first they were in the beginning they were like, yo, man, just come and kick it. And I would always skate, and they would call me the skater kid. They're like, this fool always comes with a skateboard. And we smoked some weed here and there, and I would skate, and everything was fine. And I loved kicking it. But then my eyes started opening, like, yo, man, like, these dudes are gang members. So, like, does that make me a gang member? But at the time, I still had hair. I still wore skating brands. I would come around, and my MP3 player that I had, like, Metallica in it. And then they're like, what's up, dude? You gonna join or what? And I was like, damn, do I need to get jumped in or what? They're like, yeah. So little by little started changing my clothes first. And then the day came when one of the dudes had just gone out of prison. And then he's like, who's this dude? And then he told him, like, oh, he's been kicking it for a while and he's pretty down. And then I got jumped in. And then from there, it just escalated like super fast. Like, next thing you know, I'm buying guns. I'm buying a bulletproof vest. I got stabbed. I got stabbed in the head. I got stabbed in the back. Instead of now smoking weed, I'm selling it. And every time I would sell it, I would just buy food for my brother and sister, clothes for my brother and sisters. Like, it felt good telling my brother and sister, like, yo, we're going to go to Shoe City and we're all going to get Vans. And we're going to go out. We're going to go to the theater. You guys can get whatever you want. And then, afterwards telling them, like, oh, I'll see you guys again. Because at that point, I wasn't even living in my house anymore. Because my mom was like, get the fuck out. Like, so by 16, I was already out of the house. And I mean, I wasn't like the most gangsters of the gangsters, but I mean, being shot at, I remember as a teenager being like, fuck, like, this is real, because first it was little rumbles, fights. And then when I got stabbed, that's when I first bought a gun. And it just happened that the dude had a bulletproof vest. So I was like, yo, I'll take that too. But then when I got shot at, now it made me angry. And I knew it wasn't just fighting anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I mean, that's what I was doing for a long time. But this entire time, I knew I didn't belong with them. I would get high and I would look around some of these dudes and be like, bro, we're not the same. They would do shit that I didn't agree with. Not all of them, but some of them, like they would call the Pizza Hut guy, tell him to deliver like 5 pizzas, and then they would just jump him and take the food. And I'm like, bro, you sell mad drugs. Like, your pockets are filled with 20s and 50s and 100s. Like, what was that for? Like,
Yeah.
And I believe in loyalty. I believe in
respect.
respect.
You had a conscience.
Yeah.
You just knew what the difference between right and wrong. And that started maybe to bother you at that time.
It did. And it would really come out when I would get high. When I would get high and look around my surroundings, I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, you don't belong here. But when the high would get off, of course, with my upbringing, the anger that I had inside, the testosterone pumping because you're becoming a teenager, and then you got pride and then peer pressure. It took me a while to say, you know what, enough is enough. And within the gang, I had my own little crew. And one day I decided I got the crew together. I was like, look, man, I was wrong to come inside. And some of them I had brought in. I was wrong to get us into this. They're not us and we're not them. We're down. We take care of each other, but they're not like us. We need to get out. And half of them were like, you're right. They saw it coming. A few of them were like, man, are you sure? Like, are you? And then so like 2 or 3 of them still represented the gang for a while, but they were still kicking with us. And then when I told the gang, at that point, I'd been in for about 3 years in the gang. At like 90% of all the violent crimes my crew was committing, and me being the leader. If they were selling drugs, we were doing it. If we were robbing drug dealers, we, did some home invasions. I always targeted criminals, because who are they going to go to? When it came to the shootings and the fightings, especially the shootings, I mean, I was there. And if I wasn't the main one, I was always the main one. But if I wasn't, it'd be because somebody would be like, yo, it's my turn. You do all the work.
Yeah.
So when I told the gang, I told them, I was like, you can either leave us alone or not. And if you're not going to leave us alone, well, you already know what we're going to do. You already know how I am. And what was funny is that the dudes who I thought were going to have an issue were like, go do your thing, man. And then the dudes who I thought were going to be cool, they would be like, you're a pussy, fucking traitor, fuck you, and all this and that. And if we ever see you, whatever. And I'm like, bro, I'm right here.
Yeah.
What do you mean, But so that was pretty easy. But the gangs that we were having issues with, they weren't going to let us go that soon. Not that much later, somebody tried to kill me at a party. And I had a gun, so they missed their chance and gave me a second to react. And then that's when I also got stabbed a different time. So it was rough. And then some of them were like, yo, man, they would run up on us. We'd be ready. And, I mean, I told my crew, I was like, look, they're going to leave us alone. And if they're the ones who are not going to leave us alone, it's all or nothing, man. And it's going to be all, and it's going to be on their side. So, some people got what they deserve. And
this all happened around Santa Ana area, like Orange County, stuff like that?
Yeah, so the gang was located in Garden Grove, but it was at the border. So we would sometimes have issues with and be cool with gangs in Santa Ana and Anaheim. And then because I was kicked out from a lot of junior highs, I made a lot of friends. So when those 3 junior highs that I went to and all the friends I made, when they went to their separate high schools, the bubble grew. So my network and the people that I knew was huge. And at some points it was weird because dudes that I was cool with in junior high, they went to a high school where they went to the rival gang. And next thing you know, we're fighting. And there'd be times where I'm like, bro, like, I thought we're cool, and then, but they were just so loyal to their gang. They're like, nah, dude, fuck you.
Yeah.
And then that was a weird.
So how did you finally move out, like get away from all that shit and eventually make it into the military?
So
and then how did your parents feel about all that? And where was that whole relationship?
So at that point, I mean, my parents were like, you're a lost cause. You're everything that we said and everybody says that you are. You're not going to accomplish anything in life. You're a loser.
You're fuck up.
Yeah. Fuck up. But
look at you now, huh?
Yeah.
Well, you didn't have a lot of help as a child. Yeah. You know what I mean? To go another path, except that really. And that's what, looking back now, I didn't. There was no male figure or even just a role model, whether it was male or female. There was nothing. Both the people that are supposed to be teaching you, protecting you, and loving you are just physically, mentally abusing you since you were little to the point where you think that's normal. You know.
So your family for a long time were your homies in the gang and just people that you skated with and ran with in the streets and shit like that. So, I mean, that's the story. That's, there's a lot of people that shit happens to. And I think, the way you found your way out and, how did that go down?
So about a year before I joined is when I told my crew, like, yo, we're wrong. Let's get out. So we got out. I made everybody go back to school. And then the ones who couldn't go back to school, we all started doing continuation. And then we all got jobs. Yeah, we were still selling drugs, but we got like legit jobs. And little by little, as this is the bubble around us is seeing what we're doing, for the most part, they're leaving us alone. And then there was one major incident where, some dudes tried to run up on us and that weren't going to let it happen. And, some dudes got shot. And we thought, I remember for the next 2 following weeks, I was in the front of the house, bulletproof vest, guns, and I was just waiting. Every car that would pass by, I was already mentally planning on where what will provide me cover and where I can shoot back, the best. And it never came for 2 weeks. And then one day, fucking SWAT came and they raided all of our houses. So everyone that in my crew, everybody got raided. And what happened was that they told on us that, we had shot their dudes up. And, but because I always believe that if you're going to do something stupid, be smart about it. So I started going to CSI classes at the community college level, because you can join. You don't have to be
CSI crime scene investigation classes.
At the same time, you're standing in front of your house with a bulletproof vest on. You're taking crime investigator classes.
Because I wanted to know what they were going to look for.
That's intelligent shit
that's
right
smart,
there.
Dog. Like this dude is trying to
preempt.
Yeah, that's good shit.
So all of our. If for the non-revolvers that we had, I made brass catchers. I made sure everyone had, good quality gloves. And anytime we did anything.
What's a brass catcher?
So when you shoot it, your brass catches out. So
the shells.
Yeah, the shells. So what I would do, because there's better quality ones, but I did what I could. I worked with what I had.
So you knew through your CSI courses that they were looking for shells.
Yeah.
They were going to look for shells. So you wanted to make sure that no shells were left anywhere.
No shells, no fingerprints. And then anytime we did anything, from the shoes to the hat was gone. If the shoes were brand new, I'm like, sorry, homie, but we're not all going to get caught up for you. So the kicks got to go. So we would throw everything away. So when the cops raided the houses, they were looking for specific stuff. They found nothing. I mean, they found bags of weed that we were selling. They took all the money, phones, not iPads, notepads that we were writing stuff in, clothes. But when it all came at the end of the day, it's not what you know, but what can you prove? They can prove nothing.
Right.
And then at that point, I was like, all right.
So you were doing like counter surveillance. Almost like they were trying to look into the shit you guys were doing, but you were looking into the way that they were going to investigate you guys.
Yeah.
So they couldn't get a foot in.
So none of us ever did any major time for anything. I never been to jail or anything like that. And then, but when that happened, I was like, bro, you got to join the military. And
because
then
you got away.
Yeah.
Like
that was too
you
close.
kind of figured like, yeah, that was too close.
Yeah.
Like, so it was time to kind of move in a different direction.
It was. And I had one of my buddies, we had talked about it. He wanted to go to the Marine Corps. I wanted to join the Army. And this entire time, I loved the military. I would go, one of my friends had cable, and I would go and watch the military channel all the time. And National Geographic would have specials on the Green Berets and Rangers. And I would just watch it over and over. And I'm like, man, like, I liked superheroes growing up, but since I was a little, I knew they were fake. But the people in the military movies, war movies, those were real people, and I wanted to be like them. And at the time, I didn't know why I was so attracted to it, but it's because I saw them that they took care of each other, they loved each other, they fought, they were brave, and they weren't.
That's something that was lacking in your life. I think that camaraderie, like real true brotherhood and friendship, and just people you could look up to, people that would inspire you and motivate you to do whatever it is you needed to do, right?
Yeah. So when I walked into the recruiting office, I was told, you got to be 17 and a half. And I was like, yo, I'm 17 and a half, like in a month. And they're like, let's sign you up. But because I wasn't 18 yet, my mom had to sign. So I remember I was like called my sister, like, where do you guys live now? And she's like, oh, we live here and here. And I was like, okay, well, let's go. I took the recruiter, and I remember my mom just started crying. She was like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. And it was weird to me to see my mom cry, because I was like, at the time, the relationship wasn't the greatest, you know? So when she started crying, she's like, are you sure? You know? And I was like, yeah. She signed the papers. 2 weeks later, I was gone.
Right after she, in 2 weeks after she signed the papers,
Yeah.
so where was your first stop?
So I first did my basic training in AIT, and like, which is what basic training is, people to understand it as boot camp.
Yeah.
But in the Army, they don't call it boot camp. That's just the Marine Corps. But so basic training was in Missouri, and that was a culture shock to me, because I'd never been around people from the Midwest, from the East Coast, from, you know.
Had you ever even been out of Southern California?
I've never been out. Like, as far as we would go is to the callejones in LA, you know, the alleyways. Mm-hmm. That's as far as I ever went.
Oh, shit.
I saw snow for the first time. I remember like just touching it and being in awe, and people who like grew up in that area were like, bro, is that your first time ever seeing snow? I'd be like, yeah, man.
What a trip.
Yeah. And in basic training, I was gaining weight because they were feeding us 3 times a day. And I remember being like, damn, I've never ate so much. You know, everything was clean. I had a bed. So like I was sleeping on the floor for the majority of my childhood. So being on a bed, like that was legit for me. Them giving me uniforms, clean clothes. That was cool. So like somebody yelling at you, telling you what to do, or just being miserable, and because they're trying to like make you strong and weed out the weak. To me, I was like, yo, man, I've been doing this.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, but I was still a knucklehead though, because I wanted to change, but of course there was like a step forward, step back. So I joined, but you know, I'm not sure if they did it on purpose, but all the gang affiliated people, they just put it in our platoon. So like you had gang members from New York, from Miami, from Little Rock,
Arkansas.
Yeah, Arkansas, like, and there you were, all colors and races.
But how did they know all you guys were in gangs?
Well, no,
I don't.
They can't know. Yeah. But I just think it just happened to be like that,
or attitude, or they kind of had. They probably been doing it for so long. They probably had like a 4th sense or a 5th sense or whatever of these dudes that were kind of like, you know, causing problems, or just the way that they carried themselves, or
something like that. Because I mean, they put us all there. And I mean, from day one, there was fights. People were fighting. And then after the fights were over and we realized that like, oh shit, we're in this together. Like they're, you know, fucking putting us to the ringer. They're smoking us. They're kicking our ass. Like, yo, we gotta.
So they'd fuck with you guys more.
Yeah.
Than the other dudes.
Yeah.
That were in basic training.
Yeah. And I was just like, yo, man, we gotta start working together.
Yeah.
We can't be doing this day in, day out. You know, we'd be doing pull-ups and they were like punches in our stomach. And then when we go to the ground, it'd be like pussies. And then that's when we realized, like, fuck, dude, the streets we thought were hard, but these dudes, they'd been in war.
Yeah.
You know, so then I got to my first duty station. So I went from Missouri to Washington State. And that also was a culture shock. You know, there was nothing Hispanic. Absolutely nothing. I was trying to find a taco place or whatever. They're like, yo, you got Taco Bell. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah. So Taco Bell it is.
And and then I got there. They're like, hey, new guy, fucking get ready, all right? Because in 4 months we're going to Iraq.
Oh shit!
You know,
that
like,
quick after training?
What year was that?
2008.
So how long was it from basic training to Iraq?
A year? Less than a year?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So what was your like job or your duty?
So when I would watch these National Geographic specials, these things called IEDs were killing a lot of soldiers. And at the time, I didn't know what IEDs.
What does IED stand for?
It's an improvised explosive device. So it's basically a homemade bomb. And they would put these fucking bombs on the roads and the walls and the ceilings. These people are very creative just because they don't know how to work an iPad.
People in Iraq.
Yeah, people in Iraq and the Middle East.
So these were, who were these? Was this Taliban?
No, so Iraq, Al-Qaeda. So Al-Qaeda was doing this. So when I walked into the recruiting station, I had like a little spiel I wanted to tell, and I prepared. And I was like, hey, my name's Angel Cortes. I see that IEDs are killing soldiers. Is there something that I can do to find them or eliminate them or something like that? And the guy was like, you can either be EOD or a combat engineer. And then EOD had a bunch of schooling.
What does that mean?
So it's a explosive ordnance disposal. So it's like professionals
defusing fucking bombs.
Yeah. And then they were talking about school.
You wanted to do that shit.
You just cut the red wire.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
you raise your hand, I'll go get the bombs.
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah.
Fuck, what a nut.
The dude with the bomb suit?
Like hurt lockers.
Oh,
yeah.
like that.
Right?
Yeah.
So you would wear those bomb suits and shit?
No. So that dude, that job is a lot of schooling. So I told him like, yo, man, I failed at school. I can't make it. He's like, or you can be a combat engineer. So in Hurt Locker, there's combat engineers in that movie too. So I was like, yo, I'll be a combat engineer. So I did that. And
what does a combat engineer do?
So we specialize in mobility, counter mobility. So like mobility as in like we've all seen Saving Private Ryan when they're all stuck and they need to fucking get in and then they bring up the Bangalores.
Yeah.
That's a combat engineer. And then the other way around, if you're trying to prevent somebody from coming a specific way and you want them to come a different way, we put shape charges and then creating charges that makes huge fucking holes in the road that the tanks can't come through. So we force them to come this way. So, but in the modern war that we're in, we're disposal of IEDs. We drive down, we look for the bombs and just blow them in place. So we did that for Iraq.
It just goes through it. Like, okay, so
like
we did
no
that.
big
Like, fuck, dude. So I would imagine along with that, you've seen some shit. Like you've seen some heavy like
in Iraq, no. Because so a bunch of the dudes, the senior guys, they'd been there through the invasion. So they've seen a lot of shit. So like Iraq was the first place we had legit rockets shot at us. And I remember the older guys being like, bro, that's nothing. You know, and then we would find a couple bombs here and there. And they'd be like, bro, that's nothing. That's a slow month. So I kind of felt like I didn't get the whole like war experience, but it wasn't until Afghanistan. So I came back from Iraq. I was still in the regular army. I've gotten better in shape, and I had a mentor. His name's Hugo Vanderwall. He is half Japanese, half American, and he saw me and he took me under his wing, and he was grooming me, and I was becoming more of a man. So
what did he do? Like, what was not with you? I mean, as far as mentoring you, but what was his position and what was his specialty?
He was a team leader, so he was in charge of like 4 of us. But he wasn't in my platoon. He was in a different platoon, but he just saw me and he was like, "This dude looks."
Saw motivation or saw. Like,
yeah, because I asked.
So
him,
you got into it, like you were feeling it, like
Yeah.
you were like liking it, enjoying what you were doing, pretty much.
I was loving it because
You were eating.
I was eating.
Sleeping on
and
a bed.
it's that simple. It's that simple. I had a bed, I had a room, I had drawers. I was like, bro, growing up,
your adrenaline was probably just going on the daily.
And I couldn't believe I was getting paid for this. I was like, we're literally getting paid for this. Like, yo, this is fucking dope, you know?
Wow. Yeah.
So, and then
Where's another bomb I could
Yeah.
go defuse? Fuck.
but then in our base in Washington, we would have special forces, which are also known as Green Berets, and we would also have Rangers, and I would see them, and I'm like, man.
So explain, because a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know a lot either, but so Green Beret is Army also.
Yes.
So that's the most elite of the Army forces, a Green Beret.
There's even a higher caliber. So
So what? How does it break it down?
So in the Army, you have the regular forces, and within the Army name, you have special operation units. So the special operation units there, the main ones are the Green Berets, which are they're called special forces, and it sometimes confuses them because we talk about special operations community as a whole counts everybody, right? So the special operation dudes from the Navy, who would be the SEALs, and then the Marines, which are they're called Raiders, MARSOC, but then you got the Green Beret that have the name Special Forces in it. So that's what confuses a lot of people. So you have the Green Berets. We'll just call them Green Berets. You have the Green Berets, and then you have the Rangers. And the Rangers specialize in taking over airports and stuff like that. So, we practice this all the time. We jump into random airfields or airports, and we jump in as in a big plane comes and just starts dropping us in parachutes.
So that's being airborne, right?
Yep, that's being airborne. So then once you land, you link up and you start, destroying certain targets where the enemy would be. And then direct action of if anything needs to be raided, a compound or something like that. When you want the job done, a platoon of, Rangers can fucking do anything. But then you also have the Green Berets, who they specialize in going to foreign countries as a small group, like 10, 12 of them, sometimes even as low as 5, and getting the local guys trained up and then leading them into war. So, for something like that, you need communication skills. You need to know another language. And then you also do need to be airborne, proficient in weapons and stuff like that. So you have these 2 units. And then you have which in the movies, they call it Delta, but it's called CAG now. So Rangers and Green Berets can try out for selection to be CAG. And then CAG is the top of the top. There's not that many that make it, but a bunch of Rangers always go there.
So the CAG comes from the Rangers and the Green Berets?
Yep.
So that's the elite of the elite forces.
Yep. So you have them, right? So
I never even heard of that. You heard of that, Johnny?
What
does it stand for?
Fuck. Totally, I'm blanking out right now.
It stands for fuck.
Yeah, right.
This one stands for like badass.
Yeah,
right?
you better
So
run.
those are the dudes that
they do a bunch of secret shit that no one ever talks about, no one ever hears about. They're the ones who are responsible for killing the ISIS leader not that long ago, the big old raid, and they're the ones who did it. So I would see them at the base, right? And then you would see them with different gear, better, they would look strong. They look very confident. And I remember being like, I remember I told Hugo, I want to go try out for one of them. And he had done it before and he didn't make it. He like on the last 3 days, he just tapped out. He's like, I couldn't do it. And he's like, by then I was just so tired, so sleepy that I said, we were rucking. So he has a big old rucksack and he's walking and the cadre was like, are you done? And he was like, no. And then like an hour later, he's like, are you done? And he's like, yeah. So he was like, dude, if you want to do it, you can do it. But Hugo was so much taller than me, so much bigger than me. And I was like, I don't know if I can do it, man. I'm 5'6". At the time, I was like, I weigh 130 pounds.
You're a little dude.
Yeah.
Have you ever met any Rangers smaller than you?
No, same size.
Yeah.
Same size. So then I was like, I'm training up. I'm about to drop my packet because you have to do a bunch of paperwork, a bunch of medical to see if you're good to be put through this selection process. And I was about to drop it and go to be selection for Green Berets. And then my squad leader was like, hey, don't go.
So you were first going to try out for Green Berets.
Yeah, I was first going to try out for Green Berets, but then they're like, hey, don't go because the next deployment, because you come back and sometimes you have a little as 6 months to a year, or depending on what your unit is, and then you're back again overseas. So they're like, hey, we're about to deploy, but this time we're going to go to Afghanistan and we're going to be attached to Green Berets. And I was like, but by then I was about to turn 21. I had made sergeant already.
You were only 20 and all this shit's going on? That's nuts.
Yeah. So I was 20. Yeah. I was a sergeant already. I already had my team. And they're like, we're going to go to Afghanistan.
I told you, this dude is a natural leader, bro.
Yeah.
Like, he's got it in him. So, sorry, go ahead.
That's cool.
I seen it. Like, you can see it talking to this dude and just knowing the shit that he's done and listening to, his stories and just even what he's doing today and the people that he has around him and the events and things. We'll get to that later, like things that he's into now. But go ahead anyways. Sorry. So then
I didn't believe him because that sounded too good to be true. But then I started seeing the Green Berets walking into our headquarters and talking to our leaders, and I was like, "Oh shit, this is gonna happen." So we deploy to Afghanistan with Green Berets to be part of something called Village Stability Operations. So it's called VSO. So the problem this Special Forces major wrote a paper that ended up at the Pentagon, and then some generals read it, and it was his take on why we're losing the war, especially in Afghanistan. He's like, the problem is we're fighting out of big bases. We live there, and then sometimes we go out, we fight, and we come back. and how Afghanistan is and how they're so tribal. He's like, no, we have to move into the villages, live there, protect the people, help train them to fight the Taliban as well, because there's people in Afghanistan that don't like the Taliban, and then that we will gain their trust, and then they will work with us, and then our forces will grow, because they're not respecting us, and they're and they see us as not having honor as being in this base, because they're very tribal. They don't have no iPads, no internet, none of that. So that's what they were going to do. So instead of, the problem is that if you go into a valley and a special forces team is sometimes only 10 to 12 guys, 10 to 12 guys is not a lot of, it can be dangerous.
Hell yeah.
They do it all the time though. So they're like, instead of putting 2 special forces team guys together, how about we do this? We put 1 special forces team and then we supplement it with regular army guys. And then that's where we came in. So then they put 2 squads, which each squad, depending on the sizes, can be like 10 guys or 12 guys. So then we bring in another 20 guys of regular army guys. So when we get there, and this is in Wardak, the elevation, we're operating somewhere between 7,000 to 9,000 feet. And they took over a house that they said it belonged to a shithead, like a bad guy. They killed him. And then they just lived in that house and built it up. And we were our own protection. We were our own everything. And when we got there, it was in the winter. And in the winter, for the most part,
how many of you were there?
All together, probably like 24, 25 of us.
So just moving into this village. So these people you didn't know shit about this village? Did you have any, like, who the elders were, who called the shots in the village,
Nope.
who was who? So you guys just walked right in and said, so for all you knew, some of those people could have been Talibans.
Yep. So
and they could have, or there could have been a few amongst them or whatever it was. So you guys had to feel your way around and find out where these people's heads were.
Yep.
Right?
Everything.
That's heavy. So who spoke the language?
Well, that's the thing about special forces, that some of them know that language because that's part of their job. They have to learn the language. So some of them spoke Pashtun, but also we had our own interpreters that were vetted guys that they were going to school, going to college and stuff like that. But when the Taliban took over, they eliminated all sorts of education. So these Afghans some of them, not all of them, but some of these Afghans who were college students who knew English were like, well, I don't like the Taliban. I want to fight for my country. And then when the United States came in, they're like, hey, I speak English. And then if you're young and you can speak English and you're willing to work with us, we'll take you in. Mm-hmm. So we had interpreters that their job was to translate, but also they fought. Like, they were warriors. They had their own rifles. They had their own gear. So we lived there. And when we got there in the winter, the team that we were replacing, immediately the first day took us to a place where there was parts and pieces of a vehicle where their friends had just got blown up during the spring. Mm-hmm. And they were like, come spring, be ready, because this is what's coming for you. So in Iraq, I felt like I didn't get, the whole war experience, and me being young, I wanted to fight, I wanted war. And when spring kicked off, it was everything and more of what I wanted. This thing that I wanted, that I thought I wanted, people, you don't want. Over there, we have phones because it's easier to put a satellite and then we can just call each other than it is to get food, because food you need day in, day out, and it needs to be fresh. So if you get a phone call, it's usually bad. So because I was one of the best at my job, they separated me and put me with a different group. And when I got a phone call, it was Hugo Vanderwall, and he was like, hey, man, Pinnick is dead. And that was the first guy. And then like 2 days later,
that was one of your friends.
He was one of my own guys. He was one of your guys. I was in charge of him. I was his team leader. And that hit hard because I felt like, of course, I had to be there.
Were you pissed off, or
yeah,
were you like, you were, that just kind of,
it revved me up?
Yeah, like because you wanted to work harder to get at these.
Oh yeah, and I did, and then next, a couple of days later, Lily died, and then a couple of weeks later, they got Leome, and that shit never fucking stopped.
How were they getting them?
IEDs were getting shot, snipers. And then even with, so that's...
And this was in the village where you guys were staying? Or
that's one village over, because I was taken away from my squad.
Yeah.
I went with a different squad.
Oh, that's right. You said they separated you.
So
then, had
had
you stayed with them, they could have, potentially, you could have been one of them too, right?
Probably. But then within the squad that I'm with and the group that I'm with, I mean, dudes are getting hurt left and right. Dudes are getting shot. Dudes are getting blown up, getting rockets and shrapnel and people are dying and getting hurt all over. And we're getting in gunfights, like multiple gunfights a day. We would have a gunfight in the morning, in the afternoon, and then right as the sun was coming down, repeat, day in, day out, day in, day out. And then because one of my jobs was to find bombs. At that point, I was so numb that I would find bombs and just pick them up with my bare hands, take apart, because the energy box, the batteries. So you would take that away and then, cut the wires, and then you just had explosives. So it sounds crazy, but I knew once you cut the wires, there's nothing that can happen, because you need heat, extreme heat and pressure to set them off. And then me grabbing it isn't going to be enough heat and pressure. I would go in, like, they would make holes in tunnels and little caves, and I would just take my kit off because I was one of the smallest guys, and walk in there and I would find a bomb, and then I would just come out and we were so numb to it that when I came out with the bomb, everybody was like, "Oh shit, you found a bomb, cool." And then we were getting shot at, like things that used to give me adrenaline. Like when the first time I got shot at over there, I was like, "Oh shit," and then I would get shot and it wasn't even that close, so I didn't even trip. And then when rounds would hit and pass my face where I can feel the force, that's when I felt alive. That's when I was like, okay, now it's real and stuff like that. And over there, we had a complete freedom because, like I said, we're not in a big base. We're in a small group, so we control each other. Who's going to tell on who, So we know everyone has each other's backs, and we're going to make the right calls, and we're not going to be super soft, because in war, you can't be soft. And then I earned the respect of the Green Beret guys, because sometimes when we would go out and they would only take a small group of us, the leader, the one who was in charge, would be like, "Cortes is with me."
So I think we kind of, I don't know if I didn't hear, but this was after you were already a ranger at this time?
No.
This was before you were a ranger.
Yeah, this was before I was a ranger. So
you were like paying your dues and showing like people what you were made of, and kind of like learning the ropes or whatever, just kind of combat shit.
Yeah. And
that the mental shit that went with that. Like, you're in the middle of this village with these guys, these people, you don't know who's who. Somebody could just come in wherever, because I don't know if you guys slept in the same quarters or whatever.
Yeah, we did.
Somebody could have just thrown a bomb in there and bye American guys, right? Like,
yeah, and that did happen a lot. It would happen. We would hear that, "Yo, so and so team, their terp turned on them, shot them."
What's a terp?
So the interpreter.
Oh, okay.
Or the Afghan special forces that would team up with us. One of them infiltrated by a Taliban member and shot all of them. So this was happening. So not only do we have to fight the Taliban, but sometimes some of the Afghans that we would work with us, we didn't know if they were all good.
Like sleep with your eyes open and a gun under your pillow. That kind of shit.
I would sleep with my rifle right next to my hip, and then I would have my grenade launcher also. So if things kicked off, I always went with my grenade launcher first. So then fighting just kept getting intense, spring, summer. And then we had to deal with suicide bombers. And that was the next level, because we had a mission where there was surveillance of them making homemade explosives. And they're like, "Hey, it's at this place, this facility." And when we went, because helicopters make a lot of noise, vehicles make a lot of noise. So by the time we got there, they had moved it. But it didn't feel good knowing, like, yo, there's a bunch of homemade explosives in this valley. We can't find it. And there was a base where we would go to get refueled with supplies. So it just happened to be the day we all move over there to get supplies and stuff like that. I remember it's like the sun is barely coming up. It must be like 5:40 in the morning. And I see an explosion because the base is almost built on like a little hill. And I see an explosion, and I was ratchet strapping our gear and mail that we had gone. And I remember yelling like, yo, man, that's at the fucking gate. And they had done that in previous bases where they blow up themselves at the gate and then allow dudes in. And then it's on. And as I'm saying, like, yo, that's at the fucking gate. I remember.
How far was the gate?
Maybe 200 meters, 300 meters. So it's like, it's there, you know? And I remember being like, yo, as I'm saying again, that's at the gate. I felt the strongest fucking force I ever felt in my life. And next thing you know, my face is in the dirt. Mind you, I was on top of a truck. Now my face is in the dirt. I know I didn't die, but my vision was like blurry and it's trying to like focus. And I was laying down and I was already seeing two dudes start running up to grab their gear. I don't know what the fuck that was, but what happened was a dude blew up. He had a suicide vest, blew himself at the gate to allow a dump truck to go in. And then once the dump truck went in, he blew himself up. So
that was like the shockwave or
the force. And
what was the dump truck about?
A bunch of homemade explosives. They took a dump truck, filled it with a bunch of explosives, drove it in, and blew it up.
Oh shit!
And so I remember seeing the mushroom cloud. It looked like a fucking atom bomb had gone off. So we thought they were gonna start bringing dudes in, like put Taliban members in. So we all grabbed our gear, we ran down, and they blew themselves up. It just happened that the base was next to a little bazaar, a little Afghan market. And when we went down there, I mean, there was body parts everywhere. People that didn't get initially killed were dying very slowly. You can hear them moan very softly because the overpressure is killing them. They're basically dead. That day, like 80 something Americans were injured. And we went down there. So it's the special forces guy, the combat controller, which is the Air Force guy that we had with us that controls the birds to drop bombs. So we were down there. We're waiting for the Taliban to come. And it never came because they had another suicide vehicle coming. And we knew this because the locals had talked to each other and said like, hey, these fuckers the Taliban blew themselves up right next to the market. It killed some of the Afghans. So then the locals were in front of a truck and not allowing it to come in. And the reason we knew this because our combat controller said like, hey, he got word from the birds. They're like, hey, there's a bunch of people circling this one truck. And then the birds saw that one of the drivers took out an AK and started shooting in the air so the locals can get the fuck out of the way. And it's because it was another suicide vehicle. And then once they got word and the locals went away, the Apaches, so the birds up in the air, fucking destroyed it. So while we were all there waiting for dudes.
And that took out a bunch more people too, probably, right?
Yeah. And then after that, it wasn't even over. We kept fighting some more. They tried to overrun us one day that it got, so we had our house, right? And to spread ourselves deeper into the valley, we took over another courtyard. That was like a little far away, and it being the terrain, it was only like maybe like 900 meters away on a straight line. But you're talking about the mountains of Afghanistan. To get there, might as well be forever, you know. And I remember we would switch out every 3 days. I would go, and I always wanted the shift when the sun was coming up because that's when they attack. And I wanted to be the guy. I always wanted to be the guy to get that shift to be ready. And I remember I switched out with the guy. I'm in and I'm scanning. And
you wanted to be the main dude that was there when they attacked?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I felt like I was good at my job and I was aggressive. I was smart. You had like a plan, like a way to react to whatever they were gonna. I was gonna do this, do that. I always play the scenario in my head of what they would do, what I would do, and if they counter this, I would do that.
Stuff.
Yeah. So
that you came up with on your own, or that you were taught?
Both, because you're taught things, but everywhere you go, not every place is the same. Not every battlefield is the same battlefield. So right. I was taught a lot of things, but then you would have to improvise on the situation and the scenario. And then also with what you have, you work with what you have. And I remember I saw some dude, and they played the game. The Taliban plays the game. There was a dude in between bushes with a shovel. And then I remember being like, yo, what the fuck is a dude? And they're playing the game. Oh, I got a shovel. I'm a farmer. So I told our Terp, like, yo, look at this fool. And we just looked at him for like 10 minutes, and he was just squatting, looking, and what he was looking at is that we had a back entrance, and he was looking at it. And I didn't like the feeling. So our interpreters went out there. They had their pistols in the hand. They're like, yo, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just waiting for the sun to come up to work. And then like, yo, the sun's already up. Get to work. And then he just walked away. And then when we switched out, I had told the team leader that was replacing me, I was like, hey, man, I told him what happened. Keep an eye out, man. Like, I don't like the feeling of this. And then the next day, I'm sleeping, and then I get woken up. And I heard the machine gun fire and the rockets before I really heard what the guy that was waking me up was telling me. He was telling me, hey, they're getting attacked. And I said, what? But I don't even know why I said what, because I could hear it in the background. And I knew exactly what the fuck they were doing. And they were waiting for the sun to come up. And it was like 20, 30 of them attacked it. And they got as close as to being on the other side of the wall and trying to make it into the back entrance, where our dudes had to start throwing grenades. And none of our dudes died, but one of them got his finger shot. One of them, a rocket exploded right next to his leg, so a bunch of shrapnel hit his leg. And that's what it was. Like, it was just war all the time, to where I felt like we were the only ones fighting. And then that deployment, we made the fucking news 3 times, and I thought this entire time, I thought everybody's doing what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So when we went back,
where was this exactly?
Wardak, Afghanistan.
All right.
The province of Wardak, that is in the east, and then not that far along, you got the border to Pakistan, and it's all mountains. And when we came back into the big base, because my grenade launcher was my go-to. I love that thing because bullets they fly straight, and sometimes they hide behind walls or they hide behind rocks. And I like that my grenade launcher would go over.
Yeah.
So that shit was my go-to. And I remember as I'm turning it in and laying everything out, other dudes who had been in other valleys, and it's not their fault, but it wasn't as heavy. When they set their grenade launcher, that shit looked like it had just come out the box. And then when I set mine down, I'll never forget all of them just looking at me like, what? Like, cause it was dirty. It was used up. It was scratched up. It was filthy. You just look at it and you're like, what the fuck? And then you look at my uniforms, and then you look at their uniforms, and plus the word that, because everything that we were doing, everybody was getting information on.
Yeah.
And we're just like, fuck, dude. Like, you guys were in it.
Yeah.
And then I came out of it alive, but I was angry because a bunch of my friends were killed. And then that's when I was like, you know what? I'm going to go be a ranger, because one of the special forces guy used to be a ranger. So you can go not back and forth like willingly, but you can do the selection process and go to the other unit. One of them, he told me his experience in being a ranger, and I was like, you know what? That sounds like it's more for me. Soon after that, I dropped my packet, and Hugo Vanderwall made me believe in myself. But going to war and toe to toe, step for step, being matched with these Green Berets, I was like, I have what it takes. I just gotta go. So I dropped my packet. And
so you felt at that time that you had an edge. You maybe had something that a lot of the other soldiers didn't have. Like you felt like you were a leader, and you needed to go to the next level.
Yep.
And that going to Ranger School was the next level.
Yeah. So it's
in regards to in instead of like going up a rank. So that's kind of like going up. How does that work? Is that another rank or?
So no, you'll be the same rank, but so I went to their selection process is called RASP, so Ranger Assessment Selection Process, and then because I was a sergeant already, they were like, hey man, you have to do more schooling and more of this. So then I had to do RASP, Airborne School, Master Breacher, which is their special operations breaching course, where we blow up everything from cars to walls to trees to everything.
That sounds like fun.
It was fun.
So you just got to blow shit up. They teach you how to blow shit
Advanced, like advanced demolitions. And you're just like, oh,
with good explosive.
good. Like, this is my first time having like quality gear. You're like, oh shit, like this is the Gucci gear. Like this is the cool stuff, you know?
Yeah. The top of the line explosives and they show you how to use. That sounds badass, dude.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead, go blow that car up.
Yeah.
Here, use this. And this is how you use it. That's pretty cool.
And so I made it. And by then I really believed in myself. By then I was like, because I was completing like little races and competitions here and there before my Afghanistan deployment, that I kind of felt like I gained confidence. But then going to war and surviving that built my confidence. But then passing the selection process and joining a special operations unit put me mentally on the next level, because I was like, I accomplished one thing, built my confidence, and then I did this and I did that, and then I did this huge thing. And then that's when I was like, yo, this isn't luck.
Yeah, you feel like self-validated, right?
Yeah,
like
I was like,
accomplished something.
Yeah,
major.
because to be honest, at that point, I didn't feel like I could say out loud like I am physically, mentally tough, or I can do this, you know. And then, but once I completed that, I was like, if I can do this, then what else can I do? Mm-hmm. And then I did my time in regiment was amazing, because the all the training that you see in the movies, all it's not just you don't just get Gucci gear, but it's a next level of individual on how they think, on how they carry themselves. And
you mean the actual trainee, or do you mean the people that are training you?
No. At this point, it's just us. We train each other, like ourselves. So it's all the Rangers. I was like, yo, I like this. I belong here. In the beginning, I don't think I would have made it. You know, at that time, I wasn't.
So going in, how did you, dude, you're a confident dude, man. Like that, just to be, I'm the same size as you, you know, but obviously, you know, you're in a lot better shape than I am. But I mean, to go into, there's probably just monsters in there trying to be Rangers, like big old dudes that are just, you know, badass dudes. And here's Angel Cortes, and he's
I think it's an advantage, because you don't burn so much energy being smaller.
So how did
they
were people tripping on you?
Yeah, they were. So it's one thing to go to war, right? But it's another thing to go to the selection process, because like when I went to RASP, there's this thing called pre-RASP where everyone gathers at these barracks in these rooms, and when you look at them, they look like Captain America. They look like Thor. They look like they're college. They look like college football players, you know, and a lot of them were. And I'll never forget that I was in line, and there was this smaller guy and two dudes behind me. One of them like laughed and said like, "Look at these two, like they think they have a chance." And I had gone to war. I had some confidence, but a selection process is different. You know, you're trying to be them. I was fighting along them, but I wasn't one of them. And by them, I mean a special operations guy, you know? So I looked at them and I'm like, fuck, they're fucking tall. They're big. 3 weeks later, those dudes quit.
Yeah.
And in the selection process is where I learned that, yes, you have to meet the physical requirements, but mental toughness goes a long way and surpasses that, because there are guys who could meet the physical requirements, but mentally they couldn't hack it, and they would break and they would quit. Mm-hmm. Dudes who if I was lined up, people would be like, that dude would make it. He fucking quit. So that's when not only did I believe in myself, but that's when I was like, I learned that mental toughness surpasses physical abilities a lot of the times.
Yeah.
So I gained a bunch of confidence, and then when I got there, of course, I feel a certain way when I look around and everyone's fucking bigger than me. But I wasn't the only small guy. I got there.
Yeah, but the weapons are also equalizers too.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that the physical stuff you need to do is you're carrying your own weight. Just being able to handle yourself. It's not about how much you could bench press or how much you could lift or, you know, do this and that. It's a lot of mental and physical stuff, but the physical stuff isn't like a contest with how much you can how much weight you can
Yeah,
push around.
100%.
And also like with jiu-jitsu, right? It's the same concept. Like it don't matter how big you are, if you can roll.
Yeah, you can roll.
Yeah.
100%, because and that's where I learned that. Before that, I didn't understand that. I had not experienced that, but living it firsthand, I saw that, it didn't matter how much you bench press. It didn't matter how much you squat, because a lot of these dudes who quit, if we were to go to a gym, they would out bench me, out squat me, probably outrun me.
But that's not what a ranger is about. It's not about how much you could bench, how much you could squat. It's about how can you do the job.
Can you do the job? Can you physically and mentally do the job?
Yeah.
And
what percentage do you think mentally is of the whole process?
80-90%.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's everything. Because if you're not mentally there, I mean, dudes break, dudes quit. I mean, all the time. I mean, we start at pre-RASP. We had like 250 students. We graduated 91.
Yeah.
Fuck. Yeah. So my time was there at Regiment, and I spent 4 years, and I was so into being a ranger that I forgot or didn't even realize that my time to get out was coming up. And when you get out, it's called ETS, your ETS date. So which is your last day at work, right?
Get out of the service?
Yeah. So, next thing you know, 8 years flew by. And I remember I had gone to the Master Breacher course as a student. And then this year, I was a assistant instructor. And I remember my leadership calling me. They're like, hey, man, you're 9 months out from your ETS date. Are you going to re-up? So as in, are you going to sign for more years? Or are you going to get out? Because if you're going to get out, then you need to start ACAPing. And ACAPing is the process of getting out. You have to do a bunch of meetings, a bunch of signatures, start getting your gear and stuff situated to get out. And I was like, oh, shit. Well, I was like, I don't know. Let me go home. So I go home. I talk to my wife. And my wife had been, this entire time, she had never told me no. Anything that I wanted to do, any school that I wanted to do, any deployment I wanted to go, she never said no. When my son was born, I was in Afghanistan. When my daughter was born, again, I wasn't even there. I met both my kids when they were weeks old. I had spent so much time away that my son was growing up without me. And I remember missing a lot of anniversaries, holidays, family members dying, and I wasn't there. I was just doing my thing. And I remember I told my wife, I will be there for the first day of school for him. I promise. So when it was time to ETS, she was like, hey, AJ's he's about to start going to school soon, like next year, are you going to get out like you said? And to be honest, when I said that, I kind of meant it, but for the most part, I had no real plans on getting out. But by then, they were doing a lot of restraints and restrictions on war and trying to make us fight with one hand behind our backs. And
what do you mean?
So too much politics. They were allowing Afghanistan, that government that they have in place, to have too much say into it. They were having the media play too much of the U.S. media having too much to say and influence how the people felt and politicians. And once you get to the highest level in the military as generals, it's mostly political. Yes, they wear a uniform, but it's so political that they sometimes do moves that it doesn't help the guy on the ground, the guy fighting. It's just them doing their bullshit.
Right.
And I didn't like it. They were making too many rules on us. I'm like, yo, you're trying to make war this pretty little thing and put it in a box with a bow on it. That's not what war is. War is not black and white. There's a bunch of gray in it. And you need men that are willing to physically and mentally put themselves there and put them in that fucking gray area. Because once you tell them, like, no, war is black and white and you must do this and you can't do that, well, the enemy knows that. And they play it. They play the system.
Yeah.
And I was fed up. And I was like, you know what? And then my son was about to be 5 to go to school, or 4 to do preschool. So, but even then, she still said, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, let me go talk to a Green Beret recruiter. I went over there and he's like, how much time you have left? I was like, I got 9 months. He's like, you can go to selection, but you're going to have to sign up for another 4 years.
What does selection mean?
So the selection process to join Green Berets. So it's like they basically make you do all these tasks, you know?
Fuck, I could imagine.
Yeah, it's crazy. Carry a bunch of shit, do this, do that, and little to no sleep. And then at the end, if you make it, you make it. And if you don't, then fucking later, dude. So I was like, fuck. So I told her and she's like, what do you want to do? I was like, let's get out. So 2016, I got in 2008, 2016, I get out. And growing up, I had, seen like kickboxing movies.
But you did graduate from Ranger School?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I graduated from Ranger School, Airborne School, Master Breacher. I did the courses to fly UAVs. So the small little airplanes with the cameras, Javelin, a bunch of demolition stuff. So I went to as much as I could. And when I was still active duty, I started competing in mixed martial arts, specifically kickboxing and Muay Thai. I was always been interested because of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. And one day I was like, you know what? I'm going to walk into a gym. I walk into the gym. I start training and I realized like, shit, I don't know shit about shit. I don't know how to throw kicks. I don't know combinations. So I started training. And then one day my coach was like, hey, you want to compete? And I was like, hell yeah. So I started competing. And because we're special operations, we have more gear and more training equipment, and not just that, but more personnel. So we would have strength and conditioning coaches that used to be the coaches for the Steelers or the Texas football team, or sometimes or athletic trainers that used to be UFC fighters.
So you were still in the service, or you were out
still
of
in the service?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we have in the Ranger Battalion in our compound within the base, we would have 2 gyms and have top tier coaches there for us because they want us to be as fit as humanly possible, be ready. So
this was in Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, and I remember we had somebody. It was called a registered dietitian, and I remember being like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but it's got the word diet in it, so let me go in there, and she made me a meal plan.
Yeah,
and I was actually getting ready for a fight. So I did it for the intentions to get ready for the fight, but I didn't know that after changing how I ate was going to fix a lot of stuff. Like I used to have crashes in the middle of the day and I used to think that was normal,
Yeah, that's not normal?
It's normal, yeah.
It's normal, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah,
like the food pyramid.
Yeah. I hear you. So go ahead.
So my mood improved, my quality of sleep improved. My training improved and I was recovering a lot faster because, back then my mindset was like, oh, I'm a Ranger. I know what I'm doing. No, I'm not.
What type of meal did they switch? Would you start eating?
So I used to eat mostly a bunch of carbs and a bunch of protein, like a bunch of rice and a bunch of chicken. And I used to think that was what you had to eat. But then I remember when she made my meal plan, I told my wife, just follow this. And then she's like, okay. She's like, I got to go buy scales because this has measurements. I don't have. So she went to go buy all of it. And I remember and it was dinner. She put the plate in front of me. And I remember being like, what the fuck is this? She's like, that's what the plan says. So it was a big plate. The biggest portion was vegetables. Then small portion of rice and a small portion of meat. And then I was like, it says I need to have, 3 to 4 ounces of chicken. And she goes, that's 3 to 4 ounces. I was like, fuck no, that's not 3 to 4 ounces. And she even put it on the scale in front of me.
How much is 3 to 4 ounces? Is that like
the size of your phone?
That's not too bad, right?
But cut up, not like,
yeah.
It's not like this. No, it's small.
Yeah.
So she put it on the scale and I was like, okay, and she's the professional. She's set to do this.
Yeah.
And I followed it. And then for breakfast, it was different. So what I saw is that now I have fruits and vegetables every single day. And I would have 2 fruits a day. Back in the day, I used to eat an apple once a week and be like, yo, I'm good.
Yeah.
I used to have a salad once a week and be like, yo, I'm good. No, that's not.
Yeah.
Now, because I'm going to school for this.
So that's, he's just about ready to get your bachelor's degree, right?
Yep.
In being a dietitian.
Yep. The degree is called nutrition and dietetics.
Yeah. So you're going to Cal State Long Beach, right?
Yep. ever since I got out from 2016, I just been going to school. So when I was about to get out, I was like, I want to go to school for something I'm passionate about. And then I was like, well, I like what the nutrition is doing for my training, for my body. I was like, I want to do this. So in the beginning, I went into the intentions to work with fighters and professional athletes and stuff like that. But now I want to do more community work. And of course, some private contracting with some fighters or something like that. But mostly I want to work in the community because there is not that many registered dietitians that speak Spanish that are from the community, from there and from that lifestyle to be able to communicate with them properly and try to not necessarily eliminate or change the root foods of our culture, but just switch it up a bit to where we're all healthy. So when I got out and I started going to school for that. But when I started going to school, everything was great. I call it the honeymoon phase. Is the first 3 months, everything was great, but then I hit a huge wall. And before I got out, one of the special forces guy, the Green Berets that I had gone to war with, he had gone out a year before me. And I called him and I was like, hey, what should I prepare for? And all he said was, be ready for the storm. And I didn't know what that meant. He didn't go into detail. And I was like, I can figure what he means. We've all been hearing the stories of how hard it is. So I get out, and 3 months in, I remember, I'll never forget it. I was in the shower and I was like, what storm? Everything's fine. The family's happy that we're home. We're happy. You're happy. School's great. I found another gym that I'm training at, boxing gym as well. Everything's fucking legit. There's no storm here. And like 2-3 weeks later, it all fucking hit.
Like PTSD type shit?
Yeah, so like I started having trouble sleeping. I had high anxiety because like you're turned on in the military. You're always fucking on. If it's not war, it's training, it's this and that. So then now there's nothing. There's nobody yelling at me to do this or do that. There's no fucking jump. I have to jump out of an airplane. There's none of that. There's no war. Nobody's shooting at me. And next thing also, I didn't give myself time to deal with the death and stuff like that because I already knew like this is not the place, this is not the time. I'll deal with it later. And when I would go back to the States, I wouldn't deal with it. So it all fucking came out. My friends dying and seeing how society is, not everybody, but some people, they either don't know or they don't even care that people are out there dying. So I would be like, yo, what the fuck did my friends die for?
Yeah.
Why did I sacrifice so many years of my life? And then
so was there something that you think triggered those feelings, or was it just kind of just something that all of a sudden just started seeping out?
It just started seeping out, and then something big happened. So the education benefits for a veteran are nice. You get paid $3,500 to go to school, and they also pay your tuition and your books. But in between the semesters and in summer, they cut it off. So most of us then take part-time jobs. So I did 1 semester, and then in my part-time job, I was walking. I was in Newport Beach, and some dude just starts fucking yelling at me. He's like, "Get the fuck out of my neighborhood!" He's like, "Fuck you! I fucking hate you!" And then I was looking at my phone,
right.
so I look up, and it's a dude, and he's like, "I fucking hate Mexicans! Get the fuck out of here!" And he's like pissed, but because I know how to fight and I fought, I look at him. He doesn't have like an athletic stance. He doesn't even look in shape. And I was like, bro, I remember just walking by and like, it took me by surprise, right? By shock. And I was like, well, he's not a threat because.
What year was this?
2016.
This was like the Trump time?
Yeah. So when I got out, it was prime election time. Mm-hmm. And I remember I walked to the shop and I was like, yo, I told my manager, I was like, yo, I was working at Bonsai Bowls.
What's Bonsai Bowls?
Bonsai Bowls is an acai place. It's a really good.
Isn't that a trip? Like, this dude was diffusing bombs and fighting war and doing all that, and then working in a yogurt shop.
And that's, I like Bonsai Bowls. I'm friends with the manager, with the owner, and the general manager. They're really good friends. But that's also one of the things that occurred to me because they stopped the money coming in from school. I'm working at a part-time job. My wife and I are arguing. I'm asking questions like, why did I fight? This is happening with the man, the incident where him telling me, I'm like, yo, what the fuck? I felt like I earned my spot in this country. So all this bubble, this ball of fucking emotion was coming out. And one of them was me looking back and being like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, I remember sleeping in the futon in my aunt's house and being like, yo, you used to have a house on base. You had a career. You were an Army Ranger. Now you're working at a fucking...
You're a fucking Army Ranger, bro.
Yeah.
I know. That's
I was
ridiculous.
like, yo, now I'm working at a fucking acai place.
So do you feel like the military, the government just kind of just dropped you after they
Yeah,
used you and then just...
There's a feeling of that. I'm not going to lie, because the machine keeps going. Yeah. And it was a hard hit.
You know what, to take it back just a little bit, you know, during this whole last election process and all the hate that we've been experiencing these last, you know, couple years, I feel really strongly about it, especially since my grandfather fought in the Korean War.
Yeah.
My dad's a veteran. You know, my family's all we're from South Texas and we're Americans, you know,
yeah.
as American as a Chicano can come, you know what I mean? And for people to do and say the ignorant and stupid shit like what you encountered as a veteran, as somebody who was out there, you know, giving it his all and watching his friends die and fighting for the country, and this motherfucker's freedom who's yelling at you for being a Mexican, and seeing that kind of ignorance and seeing that kind of hate and seeing that kind of discrimination or prejudice or whatever the fuck it is, it what pissed me off most was the ignorance of it all, and knowing how I was brought up, being proud and knowing that my uncles, my dad, my grandfather were all a lot, you know, military, and to be looked at by ignorant motherfuckers, for lack of a better word, of being a second class or second rate American, to me is bullshit. Is because, you know, we travel the world and I've been all over the world, and I represent, when I go out there, I'm an American, like it or not. I'm Chicano, I'm Mexican American. I'm proud of that just as much as everything else. But that was so, you know, or being pulled over or being, you know, even, you know, my wife, my kids or whatever, having to be discriminated against after everything that my forefathers, you know, like I said, my family members and people like yourself, have done. And, you know, what the fuck else? Like it's like you said, it's disheartening. It's frustrating. It pisses you off, you know, like just ignorant motherfuckers who don't have a clue of they're looking at us at face value. And if they really truly looked at us as face values, then they'd know, like, oh, well, maybe I should shut my mouth because this was all Mexico first, or these people were here way before my grandfather, my great grandfather, you know, who are the true immigrants, you know, like we're just on and on, not to get too heavy or too politically into it, but that story, like, I feel you, man. Like, you know, it's been that kind of last 5 years. You know, I've never felt in all, you know, yeah, as a kid, you feel it, you know, you're called all the typical, you know, words growing up, dirty Mexican beaner, blah, 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 whatever. And we serve them right back as kids. You know, we all talk to everybody. I don't care what nationality you are. If they're going to talk shit to you, talk shit back, whatever. That's how we were as kids. Yeah. But to see what has gone on in the last 6 years, especially under the Trump administration, all the white supremacists and the hate groups and everything that has come to surfaces, you know, I'm glad that shit's, at least the administration's over, but these people, you know, are still there.
Oh yeah. And what it is that they've always been there. It's just they had somebody that they could rally up on. I heard somebody say something along the lines of, not every Trump supporter is a racist, but every racist is a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
And I think that's very true because,
yeah, I never heard that, but yeah, that sounds about right. Cause I know some people that definitely are not racist or, you know, I honestly, I have some friends that and it puts a strain on these friendships because really, motherfucker, you're a Trump supporter,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, the majority of the people around us are not, but this guy's not a racist. And, you know, or these people that I know, they're not racist people, but they still, you know, support. And it's usually monetary reasons.
Yeah, 100%. It's that, and a lot of them, it's political, as in, you know, they're a Republican. It's part of their identity, whether they like to admit it or not. So if you say anything negative about a Republican, they take it as in you are attacking them because
Right.
they have become so part of it. Me personally, I'm neither. I like views. If I had to pick, it's left and right. You know, I'm pro gun.
Right.
You know, but I'm also like pro. You can do whatever the fuck you want. You know.
Right.
So
there's no perfect administration.
No, there isn't.
And I think the red and the blue and the Republican Democrat, that yeah, I agree with you there. It's like, there's neither one of them's fucking perfect. There's idiots on both sides. There's fucking corruption on both sides of that. It should be more about, you know, ethics and values and humanity and of course world peace and standing up for yourselves. And, you know, one thing that I told somebody the other day, I'm not sure how it's written, but what it says on the Statue of Liberty regarding, you know, welcoming people that are less fortunate into the country that we always have. And, you know, the people that came from Europe for so long. And I'm pretty sure that's still on the Statue of Liberty. Has that expired? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
So I actually did a report on Ellis Island and New York, and at the time, and it was funny because whether people like to admit it or not, but it's like the whole book was just on immigrants coming into this country.
Right.
And they were all from Europe.
Right.
They were all Irish. They were all Italians. They were all whatever.
And that's cool.
And it's cool.
That's what makes America so fucking beautiful, bro. Is people with that mentality that, you know, America is just a big, badass, best fucking place in the world because there's all of that here.
Yep.
And we're all living together in peace and we're getting along and just, you know, the beauty of it, if we could appreciate the beauty of that and the differences that we have, the cultural differences, not in a negative way, but in a positive way, like enjoying these differences. If it's food, if it's music, if it's, you know, going to a party where you're the only, you know, Mexican or whatever it is, or you're the only, it's a beautiful thing, man. And these people that don't see that, or I don't know, it's just, it ain't cool.
Well, what it is that from what I've gathered, it's that people, it's hard for them to admit that they're wrong. It's hard for them to say, I'm wrong out loud.
Yeah.
And it's hard to change your views on things. And the way I approach things is, if I feel something about, and I like to use myself as an example because I feel when I make it about me, people are more willing to listen. For example, in the beginning of the war, I didn't have any Muslim friends. So I was like, well, in my head, I was like, all Muslims are bad.
Right.
I hate Muslims. So I joined the military and I'm like, Muslims are the enemy. And then when I get to the country, who the hell do you think is helping us? There's no Google Maps of take me to the bad guys. It's the locals that are helping us.
Yeah.
And then especially in Afghanistan, they're fighting right next to us. They are bleeding right next to us. They are saving our lives. And because of my experiences, I can say, and to some people, Americans who don't, what I'm about to say sounds weird, but right now American lives are being saved by Muslims.
Yeah. Why is that weird? And that's because it's not weird. That's what the media is not going to tell us. Yeah. That this special forces, you know, group was in this village in Afghanistan. These Afghan people helped save their lives, fought along with them, like you said, bled alongside them and befriended them and assisted them. You don't hear that shit in the news. They're not going to tell you that this Afghanistan dude or this dude from this Afghani dude saved this whole, you know, platoon or whatever the fuck it is. They're not going to tell you that. They're just going to tell you that exactly what you said, that they're all bad, that these are the enemy and these are the people that we have to kill. And you're absolutely right, man. It's like, you know, I have some, and we were just on a bike ride and we kind of touched on it a little bit about, you know, yeah, there's beautiful people all over the world. There's great fucking people all over the world, but there's also real bad people and people that are just straight assholes and people that don't deserve, you know, to live.
Yeah.
But, you can't judge these people solely by their ethnicity or their religion. And, you know, you have to judge them by obviously their character and the way that, you know, their values and just the way they are.
Yeah. I think as humans, we categorize people immediately, right? Our brain like thinks really quickly and we throw them into that box. And it isn't until we get to know that person that we start learning that no, not everyone is that certain way. Because obviously we were talking about, you know, Chicanos or Mexicans like being treated a certain way, and that's the same thing like you were doing to Muslims is the same thing like Anglos do to Chicanos.
Right. And then when I was because how I was taught, Hugo van der Wal is a big mentor of mine. He still is to this day. I still ask him for advice and just to make sure I'm on the right path. But because of people like him have taught me that because I'm presented with new information on a certain subject, call it the equation, I have to put that information into the equation that would then come out of how I feel about something. Yeah. Because now that I know better, I don't think all Muslims are bad. Because now I've experienced and I know other stuff. I know that some of them are good and some of them are bad.
Yeah.
But some people aren't like that.
Yeah. But just like any other race, just like any other religion.
Yeah.
It's the same shit.
Yeah, I've met the best of the best and the worst of the worst in the military.
I was pretty fortunate as a kid, and I told you this too. I have Muslim people in my family. My sister-in-law married a guy from Saudi Arabia who was a great friend of mine since junior high school. I love him to death. He's my brother. Like, this guy's like, he's the shit. And my nieces and nephews and his family and Johnny knows my family's like a big melting pot of different ethnicities and religions, and it's all love, man. Like, yeah. I learned like these people are, you know, their food's great. We laugh, we have a good time. It took me a while, but I get their humor. I've been to Saudi Arabia a couple times, and, you know, obviously his family, not just his children, but his brothers. I was good, you know, became good friends with his brothers and, you know, just his other nieces. And it's a beautiful thing. And that's what's frustrating to me is how ignorant fucking people can be.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's why I try to stay away from it all. Like in my social media, I think social media is a very powerful thing. I think platforms like this, people talking about it and other people hearing it, they may not have the opportunity to travel to these countries, but they can hear it and then take it for face value or whatever, you know, whatever they want. And then be like, well, shit, man, what I've been told is not 100% the truth. There's more to this.
Right.
And I try to stay away from all that negativity. I try to focus on what I can change. Yeah. And to kind of circle back, when I was in the dark hole,
the PTSD.
Yeah.
It all kind of got off track, but
no, it's fine.
We'll get back to the PTSD.
And so I made a friend who just happened at school who happened to be a Ranger as well, and he was going through some stuff too. So we helped each other out. We became friends, but one of the major things that was affecting me, and I didn't know it, is I had lost my brotherhood. I found myself, even the dudes in my platoon or company that I kind of didn't like, who I thought were kind of annoying, I found myself missing them. I found I had no purpose. My purpose for 8 years was to defend the country, to represent myself, my leaders, and take care of my family in that way. And now I don't have any of that. So I started inviting veterans from my school at first and then my gym to my house and be like, yo, let's watch the UFC fights. And I would buy the food and by then I had gotten an apartment and I got my family back, so everything was fine. But then my wife got pregnant with our third child and she was like, hey, I know what these link ups mean to you. I know you love to throw them, but we can't do it anymore. Like we got a third baby coming. We can't be doing this. And she was right. So I was sad because she was right, and I was angry because I had found myself in a position to where I can't even afford a pay-per-view with some food. And by then I had a social media following, because when I got out, I started sharing my combat footage. I started sharing my advice to people, and then people would contact me and be like, "Hey man, no offense, but you're small. So how did you do it?" And then I would tell them, like everything we just talked about, it's mostly mental than physical. Yes, you have to meet the physical requirements, but you got to believe in yourself and you got to do this and do that. And to this day, last week, somebody sent me a picture of another guy who made it based off my advice. They put in the work. They did the struggle. They experienced all that. But he is like number 24 of
badass
of somebody who contacted me, and I gave them how my experiences, what helped me, what didn't help me, and now they're in. So I had gained their following, and by then people who had companies would like send me stuff, and then I'll take a picture with it. And people would be like, "Yo, is that yours?" I'm like, "No, it's not, but you can go buy it over here." So everybody was telling me at this point, it's 3 years. 3 years of me being out, going to school, hosting these events at my house. And then my wife's telling me like, "Hey, we got to stop it." So I was like, well, I need more income. And I was like, all right.
So just to back up, so the Army in your retirement wasn't taking care of you good enough to like really make a good living for yourself and the kids? No. And you were part of the elite forces.
Yeah.
And so it was basically when you're done, well, okay, that's it.
You have your education benefits, and then if you get hurt, you have like disability, but
what about is PTSD considered a disability?
Yeah, it is. So once I put in for everything, I would get almost about $2,000 a month, right? But $2,000 a month in California, that's not even rent.
Right.
So, and then when I would go to school is when I felt comfortable. I felt safe because I would get the $2,000 plus the $3,300 from being a full-time student. And that was, a little over $5,000. So that's when it was good. I can breathe. But in between summer and winter, that's when the $3,300 would be taken away. And then now I'm back to only $2,000 a month.
So for the PTSD aspect, did they prep you for that? I mean, obviously you said they had told you about the storm coming.
Yeah.
But
there is no,
and they know that this happens to everyone, right? And
now
no
I'm not sure what they do, but they would. I remember getting out. They're like, "Hey, do you want to speak to somebody?" I was like, "No," and they're like, "Okay, sign here." I sign, and that was my check in the box.
That's their opt out. Yeah,
that's my check in the box of okay. He said, "No, he's fine. Everything's fine. We're all cool."
How the fuck do they know you're fine when you just want to get out?
And
you think somebody wants to go?
Well, your buddies all died, and you see body parts laying around. And obviously, that's going to affect you.
Witnessing explosions and just
on a human level,
crazy shit.
Now,
man.
I on the previous podcast, I heard that you used DMT.
I did. So when I got out, when I was in the deep hole, and probably the most mental deep hole I've ever been in my life, I was like, one day, I was like, okay, what are you gonna do though? Yes, you're not seeing your kids because you're almost gonna get divorced. You're sleeping on a futon. You have to work at a shitty job. You have no purpose. You have no brotherhood. But what the fuck are you going to do? So I was like, okay, I gotta dig myself out. I gotta start doing things that are going to help me physically, mentally. So then Santa Ana has a place called OC for Vets. I walked in and I was like, is there somebody I can speak with? And then they're like, oh, we have a counselor. It's 6 months for free. And I was like, boom. I started talking to somebody. And then I started making friends at school, one of them being a ranger. So that really helped. And then another one, being a Marine and I started making friends. So then I started filling in the stuff that was wrong, So I didn't have a brotherhood. I started creating a small group. I felt like I didn't have purpose. I started doing the events at my house, which everybody said they loved. And I can tell they liked it. I liked it. And then I talked to my wife and was like, I want to make things work and stuff like that. And cause the counseling helped and talking to my friends, them being more counselors than anything. And then I've been listening to Joe Rogan for a long time and I was like, you know what? I want to try this DMT. So I did the DMT and I remember it took me a whole day to process what was happening. Well, in my head.
How did you? Was it vaped or did
Yeah,
you,
it was vaped, and
Did you have a shaman or you just did it with?
no, so at the time I was working at a t-shirt place that they would print t-shirts for the local military Camp Pendleton.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys there, he was a Marine, and he was like, "Hey man, I got the DMT pen." I was like, "For real?" And I was like, "Damn, that's cool, dude. I want to do it." He's like, "You want to do it now?" I got it in the car, and I was like, but I was scared of it. I was like, "Nah." I was like, "I'll do it tomorrow." And then so I took it. The following day, he was like, "Hey," he's like, "When do you want to take it home?" I was like, "No, man, I'm gonna do it before work." He's like, "For real?" And I was like, "Yeah, fuck it. I mean, it's only us, the boss is in here." So.
Yeah.
So I did it. I got there like an hour before work started, and I did it in the limo actually, and it was the most powerful experience that I can't really explain. As soon as I took a hit, he was telling me, he's like, "You're gonna feel it immediately." I thought it was like, oh, you get high and then you kind of wait for it to creep in. It was fucking instant. And he's like, "Close your eyes and just lay down." But I wanted to keep my eyes open. And then the interior of the limo is blue, and then it all turned blue, and then I had a skateboard in there, and then the skateboard colors popped out, and then I closed my eyes, and then I saw colors and shapes and that I don't have the skills to draw. And before I was done, before I realized it was over, but it wasn't that long. It felt like I was high for a long time, but it was like maybe 10 minutes. But the effects were like all day. Like I was folding t-shirts, and then he was like, "How do you feel?" And I was like, "I'm just processing everything." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, he already knew, So he's like, "I'll just leave you alone. It's a simple job. You just fold t-shirts." And I get home, and I told my wife, I was like, at times, I might have, or it is, I love the community more than I love you. And I put them first before you for a long time. And she's like, "I've known this." She's like, "But how do you tell that to somebody who can't even see it?"
Yeah.
And then it made me
this was because of the DMT experience.
Yeah.
You think it gave you perspective?
Yes.
And did it really help you?
Yes, it changed my life, because after that I was like, you know what? I during it, I was also, what I was doing, I didn't know if it was the right call. Like, I felt like it was the right thing to do. I don't know these people. I'm inviting them to my house. I'm spending money that I don't have the fucking money to spend. But I felt like what matters in this world is people and the time and experiences you're with. And then when I did that, I remember just looking at my phone and I just wanted to fucking throw that motherfucker away and just be with people and my kids, my friends, and not worry about any of the BS. And so it confirmed that I was doing the right thing.
Did you just do it once? Just that one time?
For a while, and then I did it one more time.
A lot of people say that sometimes all you need is one time.
Yeah.
But I have friends that continually do it, and they're reaching different dimensions, and it's just changed. It's changed their lives for the positive. So I've heard a lot of real positive things about the effects of it.
And the biggest thing for me, what happened is that I thought it was part of the hype, but I felt relaxed. And then the next day, I still felt relaxed. And usually what I do is if I'm thinking something or feeling something, I don't say it until like later, just to make sure. And then like on the third day, I told my wife, Analia, I told Analia, I was like, I got high from the DMT, and then I was really calm and relaxed. And then yesterday I was calm and relaxed. And then I was like, today I'm calm and relaxed. And what I realized is that it had scraped off a level of anxiety that I was living with that I didn't know. Mm-hmm. I was just so used to it that it became the new normal. The threshold was raised, and then therefore that's my normal. So when a level of anxiety went out, I was just a lot more calmer, more relaxed, happier. And I didn't feel like I needed to do it again. I didn't feel like,
That's what I've heard. There's a good friend of mine who says the same thing. And most of the people that tell me about their DMT experiences are successful people, like people that are very successful. Some of the most successful people I know, and not in the music industry or entertainment or anything like that. These are just, business people that I know or friends of mine, but that it's changed their lives too. So what I'm hearing is DMT really helped or cured a good part of your PTSD.
100%. It had taken a level of anxiety because throughout my day, if I hear loud explosions or anything like that, I don't freak out. But mostly when I drive and I have moments to think, I think about the past and I think about this. But just as quickly as it went in, a minute or two, it just went out, and I forget about it. But I can tell that sometimes it creeps up on me because in my sleep, I would sleep with my hands in the air, or I would sleep with my lower body flexed, and for me personally, it was always in my sleep. It was never during the day. During the day, I look normal as fuck, but in my sleep, sometimes I would twitch, and then my Analia would like rub me to calm me down. She's like, yeah. She's like, did you feel yourself twitch last night? And I was like, no. She's like, you twitched twice really hard, and then once I just started putting my hand on you, you like relaxed. She's like, but you were tensed up. She's like, I tried to put your hands down, but you just wanted to keep your hands up, and I was just like, oh shit. But it calmed me down. And then around the same time, a little bit before that, is when I started my company. The company's called OG Pumpkin. So when my wife was like, hey, we can't be doing this, I needed something. So for years, people were telling me, you got to create something. And then I was watching The Office with my wife, and my son comes up and he draws a pumpkin, and he's like, yo, man. He said, yo, man. He's like, oh, this is for you. And I was like, and I looked at it and I was like, can I have it? He's like, no, I made it for you. And I was like, okay. And I told Analia, I was like, this is it. This is going to be the logo. Cause I didn't just want to put a skull with like knots, the night vision that everybody, because it's been done too many times. So I wanted to do something that meant something, And so I made like 100 stickers, and I went on Instagram and I was like, hey, who wants a free sticker? And like in 2 hours, all 100 stickers were spoken for. And anywhere that there was a military base, people wanted it. So I'm sending it out to Germany, Spain, Italy, all over the US, Alaska, Hawaii, places far, far away. You're like, yes, they're the US, but I'm talking about far away. So next thing you know, I'm filling out 100 envelopes. Well, Analia is, because she has better writing than I do. and then I was like, I think I got something. Yeah. So I made the pumpkin, which is my son's drawing. I made that the first t-shirt, and it made me enough money to start supporting the UFC fights. And then I got more art. And then
so part of the UFC fights was not just to have the gatherings, it's just to help other veterans that were struggling with the same stuff that you're struggling with. Did you I don't want to get off track too much, but did you also encourage them to try DMT?
No. That specifically, I haven't. I've when people ask me, I share my experiences, but I always tell them that's what worked for me.
Yeah, because I don't know if there's a show that, because I've done some research on DMT, but Lisa Ling has a show called This Is Life, and she also talked about DMT to cure PTSD and other mental illnesses or anxiety or problems with. And I would tell people, because I'm not a doctor, so I'm not sure if there's legal reason, but I always share my story of what happened and then leave it up to them.
Yeah. So then the company started growing, and I just did it to have money for the UFC fights. And then I started making a lot more money, to where then I was like, you know what? Not that many veterans like UFC fights, fighting to sit down, but everyone loves to shoot. And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do a shooting course and tell people it's all free. You come out, you got to be a veteran, and we just shoot all day. So I bought 2 cars that we shoot to and from the vehicles, and I got a taco guy come out. He serves us tacos, and I pay for the cars, the taco guy, the range fee, and because more money was coming in, and because I grew up poor, so like to be honest, in my house, as long as the fridge is filled,
you're good.
I'm good. So then I also started sponsoring college kids or high school kids who needed gear to get ready for their selection. Because if you're a high school kid or a college kid, you probably don't have money. And some of the gear is expensive, like a pair of boots, a good pair of military boots, probably like $180. And then if you want a rucksack to get rucking or running shoes, it all adds up. So then I would tell people like, hey, send me a picture with the contract. And then they'll send me a picture with their ID and their contract. And then I'll be like, and then what's your Venmo? And then I would Venmo them money. And then it's gotten to the point where then I started dropping off food at food banks. I would go to Northgate, which is a Mexican supermarket. I would buy like $1,000 worth of food, take my kids and try to explain to them like, when we're dropping it off, like your childhood is not what I experienced. Like I used to have to come here in line early in the morning to see what we would get. And then now we have the ability to drop it off. It is our duty because we can help that we should help. And I feel like that's the right thing because Hugo Vanderwall, he didn't have to help, but he saw it as I do have the ability to guide this young man, then I'm going to do it.
But it also kind of snowballed because now you're helping so many other people too. It seems to me like, and we probably got to wrap this up, but it seems to me like you've now dedicated your life to helping other people. Like your prime, even with your brand, OG Pumpkin, and the money you make from that, you're helping veterans and you're basically giving back to the community. You're helping kids, you're helping veterans, and you're, just giving back. And I know you're also, you do MMA, you still train. You're just about to get your degree in as a dietitian.
Yep.
Man, dude, your future looks super bright. And before anything, I go on, I want to thank you for your service. I respect that and I admire that and thank you so much. Just sincerely, thanks for your service. And you're just it's an amazing story and we'll have you back because I know we could talk for another hour or two or three. You know what I mean? And I know this dude drove down in a limo today. So Angel's daily driver is a 1992 Lincoln limo. We haven't seen it yet, but hopefully he'll take us for a drive or something in it. But he drives his shit on every day, right?
Yeah.
He drove it from Orange County down today. Yep. And the Mike Giant and a couple of the other homies were standing out front watching this guy drove by in a limo trying to pull into the lot. And they didn't know who he was. Like, where's this dude going to park? But he drives a limo. And man, thank you so much. And we wish nothing but the best for you and your family. And we'll be seeing a lot more of you around here, and you're always welcome here. And, just congratulations on everything. And I know that, from what I hear, the struggle's real too sometimes with what you've encountered in the PTSD, and know that we're always here for you. And, you're welcome in the building and, thanks again. And what do you want to say anything, John?
Same thing. Thank you for your service, not only in the military, but in the community, because you're actually serving more than one community. You're serving the armed forces military community, but as well as the, Mexican American community, as well as the lower income community, because it don't matter where you come from or what race. If you live in poverty,
100%. And I know we got to wrap it up, but because of the platform is getting bigger, you're 100% right. I got dudes from Philly, from Baltimore, from New York who are like, yo, man, I don't know what Cali is like, and then they tell me basically what I've been through. And then they're like, it gives me hope seeing somebody like you do it. And something that you told me about the leader part of the community, I know I'm a leader in the military. I know I have experience, but I never thought about being a community leader in an area where I used to cause so much trouble. And since that day, it's been on my mind. And that is the path where I feel it is my duty. And I feel like because of what I've done, people are more susceptible to willing to hear me out. Yeah.
It's true, man. Like I said at the beginning of the show, you have the credentials, and you know you'll get respect from the street because of your knowledge from the streets, and obviously the military, and you're educated, and you train, and you know how to handle yourself physically, mentally. So, man, I'd love to see where you know your future goes, and thanks again, man. And it was great having you, and hopefully we'll have you again. And there's so much more we can talk about. Like I said, but
OG Pumpkin, there's a website, or where can we?
So So the Instagram handle is _OG_pumpkin. My Instagram is Angel G Cortes 175. If you don't put the G, some weird guy comes up.
Don't get it confused.
Some super
Angel
weird guy.
G Cortes.
Yeah.
With the S.
With an S.
Yeah, Cortes with an S.
175. And then just support whatever way you can. Just show up or just talk about it.
Yeah, and I've got some ideas that we'll talk about afterwards. There's a guy named Hammond Meredith. Shout out to Hammond, and this guy's does a lot of really good things for veterans too. So I definitely want to introduce you to him. And once again, man, thanks. Lower Left Podcast, 17th and Island, San Diego, Johnny Be Good, Angel Cortes. Thanks again for your service. It was a pleasure having you. And we're out. Peace.